Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we'll continue next part 2, how to deploy Spring Boot application in Kubernetes. Part 2 we are going to discuss in today's session. So in the last session we completed first four steps. Step 1, step 2, 3 and 4. Like creating Spring Boot application from the scratch, creating a Docker image and creating Kubernetes deployment file, Kubernetes service file. Today, we'll deploy the application and different types of Kubernetes commands also we'll discuss here. If you are watching for the first time this session, so in the description box, we have a playlist we have. Just you can watch about the part 1 for the deployment for first four steps here. This is about the part 2 session, guys. Okay, and guys, if you need immediate updates, so this is our Telegram group, Java Express Official. You can join in this group as well. In the comment box, we have a this link is available here. On day to day, we will be update interview questions as well, types of interview questions and everything. Lot of things we will be discuss in this Telegram group as well, guys. If you are not yet joined, join this group for the updates for our videos also. Okay, now we'll start our session then. Okay, so let me open what we created in the last session. So this is our project Spring Boot hyphen Kubernetes, and in this project we have three files. One for the Docker file, creating Docker image for our application, and deployment file. Whenever you are deploying a file, Kubernetes, it will create the pods, two pods for you, like nothing but replica sets. And the importance of this label name also in the last session we discussed here. This is for your application running on 8080 port number, and your service file for this particular label name. Now for this particular pod, I want to expose our application as well, right? Now we'll start our deployment now. So to start our deployment now, to deploy into Kubernetes, now kubectl in your local system, kubectl also you should install. And to run our application, now this is our command to deploy any Spring Boot application in Kubernetes. We need to apply kubectl apply hyphen f your file name. In our use case, Spring Boot hyphen deployment file and Spring Boot hyphen service YAML file. This is for deployment purpose here. Then we can access our application. So we'll start now. So what we'll do, let me open the command prompt here. Right click, and it's taking time. And before going to that, you should uh, Kubernetes you should install in your local system. How to install means by using the Docker desktop in your local system. Just type Docker desktop here. Through Docker desktop, Kubernetes installation is dead easy, guys. Previously we have a Minikube setup for Kubernetes deployment. Now, no more Minikube setup, not required at all. Okay, I think it is taking time to open the Docker desktop. Now, just open our command prompt CMD. Okay, here we can verify our Kubernetes is running or not. How to verify? kubectl get nodes. When you specify this command, it will display, okay, my Docker desktop is running, and it will display control plane is nothing but master node here. So when you run this command, you should get this output. Then your Kubernetes is running in your local system. Now to deploy our application, now before deploying our application, we should execute couple of commands. Now this is like a Kubernetes cheat book. It's kind of a different types of commands we have. For your understanding, I will try to explain now. Just have a look. Now the first command, if you want to know cluster information. The first command called kubectl cluster hyphen info. We'll try to run this command. Just observe here. Kubectl, okay, and cluster hyphen info. So it will display your Kubernetes control plane, where is your core DNS networking related proxy. It will display like a your Kubernetes cluster information using this command. Now already we run Kubernetes get nodes. When you run same commands in the cloud environment, it will display number of worker nodes, master nodes, and your cluster. More information you will get. Right now we done our Kubernetes installation in our local system here. Okay, now what is the next command? Now kubectl get pods. Right now if you specify get pods, it will not display any applications not running in our Kubernetes. But here we have another command called hyphen name spaces. If you specify here, it is displaying under cube hyphen system. Under this namespace we have some couple of parts are running here. See, one by one: core DNS, etcd, API server, controller manager, scheduler, storage provisioner. Like different types of parts also available under another namespace here. So what are the namespaces available? If you want to know, just kubectl get ns. Ns is the shortcut. What are the namespaces available under your cluster here? Now default namespace, when you are deploying any application into Kubernetes, under this namespace our pods will be available. If you want, we can create our namespaces also. See here, namespace operations here. Here kubectl get namespaces. This is the shortcut here. Now like see here, namespaces you can use. This is both are same. Ns is the shortcut here. Okay, now if you want to create your own namespace, you can use kubectl create namespace. Namespace you can provide. Just for your understanding, see here, kubectl ns, you can provide like a dev. A dev namespace will be created here. Now have a look. Now you want to create some prod. A prod namespace will be created. Let me take as a prod, like a prod configurations. In this way we can able to create namespace. Inside this namespace I can deploy my application. That is the meaning here. Okay, now let me clear the screen. Now you got some information about kubectl here. Now here, pod operations. Now if you see here, this Kubernetes is divided into number of configurations, like a pod specific operations, deployment operations, service operations, like different types of commands we have. Now in our use case, to deploy our application, the commands it will be useful like a pod operations, deployment operations, and service operations here. These commands will be useful now to start our application deployment here. So to start our deployment, now open your application in the command prompt here. Wherever you have this file name, you should open the command prompt in the same workspace here. Okay, now just have a look. Now this is my project. Now open here. Now inside here, just open the command prompt here, cmd command prompt. Here I want to deploy your application. If you see here, to deploy your application, top hand side are able to see here guys, kubectl apply your file name hyphen f you should provide. Now just go to your command prompt and kubectl apply hyphen f your file name. What is our file name? Spring Boot hyphen deployment dot yaml. We are deploying the deployment file here. In this deployment file, it will create these pods, replica sets for your application. Now have a look. Let me do enter. See what is the output you are able to see. Deployment is created. Now to start with our operations again, now we can run our commands. Now what is the first command I should perform? See here, kubectl get pods. Kubectl get pods. When you enter, you are able to see two pods are running. See pod 1 and this is for the pod 2. See status is running here. Why two instances is created? Because of in our application we given replica sets as a 2 here. If you change, you can change to 3. Now 3 replica sets it will create. That means 3 instances it will create. See, let me try to apply one more time. Now configured. Again, if you run the same command, now see, three pods are created. Whenever huge traffic is receiving, your traffic will be divided into each pod here. Pod 1, pod 2 and pod 3 here. Anytime these pods can be restarted also here. Then how to access the application? Right now you cannot access your application anymore. First we'll try to see these commands and then we'll try to discuss how to access your application. Now kubectl describe your pod and pod name. I want to know information about your pods. Kubectl describe pod your pod name. Just try to provide your pod name. And see here, container started the container, created the container image and successfully assigned. Are able to see started, created, pulling and scheduled. Now these are the operations are these are the events are happening to deploy your application. Your complete description of your pod information, which image you are using. See, this is my image name 1.0.0. Your state is running here. You can able to see IP address for this specific pod. See, controlled by your replica set. We are creating multiple, see, labels app equal to spring boot hyphen label. This label name is very very important. When you are, if you see another pod information you can able to see here. This is for describing your pod information here. kubectl get pods. Okay. Now next command, I want to view the logs of this specific pod. I want to see how you can see kubectl logs hyphen f represents live logs you will get. If you don't specify, previous logs you will get. Now let me provide the log information here. Now kubectl are able to see your application started on 8080. Can you access your application from the browser? You cannot. Have a look here. 8080 slash hello. When you specify, you cannot access your application by default. Why? Because you are still not exposing to access outside world. Okay. Now started the application. Now you can verify all the logs as well. You can verify all the pods. See here and keep it here. See, your application is started in 3 containers here. Okay. Now what will be the next command we have? I want to exec. I want to log in into the pod. We can inside a pod also. I can log in here. How? Just have a look here. Clear the screen. Get pods and see kubectl exec command. What is the interactive terminal hyphen t, your pod name. Now copy this the pod. Inside a pod, your Docker container will be running here. I want to like a bin slash bash. When you specify, now see, I am into which path? Inside a container. If you do ls command, you can able to see your Docker image. See here, Spring Boot hyphen Kubernetes dot jar. How it is happen? This is a Docker image. See, inside a Docker file. See here, we are writing Spring Boot hyphen Kubernetes. This is your jar file usually, but this is the name I renamed and we push it into a pod. Inside a pod, your containers will be running here. Your multiple containers we can run here. To come out of this, just you can do the exit here. In this way, if you log into another container, your jar will be there. Another jar. Like how many replica sets you are creating, those many number of jars will be available inside your specific pod here. This is for the pod information here. Next, deployment operations. Now you deployed your application. Now how these pods are created? Who is the master? Your deployment file. See here, 𝐓𝐶TL get deployments here. When you specify Spring Boot hyphen deployment, so this deployment is created these three pods for you. If you delete this deployment, these three pods will be destroyed. These three pods will be destroyed here. Okay. Uh, Now these three pods will be destroyed. Now let me go to here, and if you want to know, describe, the commands are same. 𝐓𝐶TL describe deployment, which is the deployment file, Spring Boot hyphen deployment file, and enter. And see here, scaling up replica sets. Initially we given 0 to 2 in our configuration file. Later on time 2 to 3. Some events are happen in this one. And see here, what is the label name? Spring Boot hyphen label name. What is the strategy it is using? Rolling update strategy. If you delete a pod, a new pod it will be created for you here. What is the Docker image name? This is the Docker image name here. So in this way, you can able to monitor your deployment also here. Now you can scale replica sets also using the command. Now have a look here. 𝐓𝐶TL, okay, and scale deployment. What is the deployment? Spring Boot hyphen deployment. What is the replica sets count? What is the replicas equals to 5? If I given replica set will be created. Now verify your parts now. 𝐓𝐶TL parts. Are able to see 5 parts. Is it scaled your application here? In this way, you can scale your application also. You can increase and you can decrease whatever you want. Now if you see here, replica sets is equals to 2. Now get parts. See, remaining two are the error. If you delete the deployment file, your parts also will be deleted. Why? Because this is a temporary. Whenever you want, it will run. Whenever you don't want, it will delete also here. See, only two parts are running. But this is a temporary command. Why? Because at a command prompt, we are giving the command. But if you run your deployment file, it will create the three pods. Now suppose 𝐓𝐶TL get rs replica sets. See, two desired, current, and ready here. Got it? That is about your deployment operations here. Now service operations. Now have a look here. Now whenever you run your application, by default there is default service will be available. It's very, very important. Try to understand here. Now there is a type called cluster IP here. Now inside our application, go to our service file. Inside this service file, for this specific pods, what is the label name? Spring Boot hyphen label. Service file represents I want to access my application outside the world. That is the meaning here. I want to access my application outside the world. To access, which is the port number 8080 is the container port number, and this is for outside which port number you want to access. Now by default, if you run this service, it will create one type called cluster IP. Have a look here. Apply -f spring boot service, enter. See, service is created. Now kubectl get svc. If you see here, spring boot hyphen service type called cluster IP. When you specify, if you don't specify anything, cluster IP default type, you cannot access anymore. Then what is the benefits are? Means another pod can communicate. See, in the real time, not only single application, multiple applications. If you take our e-commerce application, now let me show you a diagram. If you take this architecture, if you deploy this architecture into Kubernetes, this is one pod, another pod, another pod. The pod to pod communication can happen through cluster IP, but from the browser external world, if I want to access, you cannot access your application anymore, right? In the real time, how we will use, this is the domain name, right? app.diagrams.net and web. Like a domain name should be required. We are running on our local system. To access your application from Kubernetes, we need to change a type called load balancer. Here we need to type called load balancer. In cloud environment, if you specify load balancer, it will create DNS name for you in the cloud env. But in local, you can access using localhost only here. Have a look. Now I'm changing load balancer. Now go there. First see kubectl describe service. What is the service name? Spring Boot hyphen service. Enter. Now there is no events are happen as of now here. Now if you see here, what is the target port number? 8080. Endpoints, this is the internal port numbers, and this is your port number 8080 you can access. Now let me apply this one more time here. Now verify, clear the screen, kubectl get svc. Now are able to see here localhost. When you specify type is a load balancer, anyone can access your application using. Right now we deployed our application into local system. Through localhost you can access, but same commands if you run in a cloud environments, a DNS name, it will be allocated as a external IP here. Now you can access our application. Have a look here. Now refresh. See, application deployed in Kubernetes here. That's why service is very, very important here. Got it? Now, the next step. Now, which port number? 8080 port number. Now, I want to access. So right now our application is running on which port number? 8080 port number. Suppose you want to change the port number. Now 8090 I want to access my application. Now I am changing this is called exposing internet facing port number. This is This is your application port number. Now go to your command prompt and just try to run your service file one more time. Now just verify again. Now see 8090. If you want to see what are the events are happen, I want to see once kubectl describe. Oh, I don't see any events at what time, what change it is happen. That's okay. Now see, this is called container port number. This is your container port number. Now you cannot access your application anymore using 8080. Run, you cannot access. Instead of that, what you can do, 8090 you can access. See, application is deployed in Kubernetes here. Why we need a service means when you hit an API, the request can go to any one of the pod here. Now it is running on a one IP address, it is running on a different IP, another pod, another IP. We cannot remember IP addresses for each pod here. So service means it is a fixed static IP address or fixed DNS name. When you hit a URL, the request can go to this API, the request can go to this API also here. That is the benefit. That is the benefit of using, okay, your service type as a load balancer URL here. We'll try to run some other commands. Config map and secrets you can ignore. Right now it is not applicable in our application. Now you want to delete, see, deleting a resources, and kubectl delete your pod and pod name here. What is the pod name? And your pod name. And if you try to delete a specific pod, just observe here, kubectl delete pod, your pod name. Let me provide this pod name here. Enter. And see, your pod is deleted. Now if you try to run again, you can able to see another pod. See, 6 seconds ago. This is called rolling update strategy. Even though pod is down, it will recreate a another pod for you here. Then how to delete permanently all the pods means by deleting a deployment file. If you delete a deployment file, you can delete your pod. If you delete a service file, you can delete the service also here. Have a look here. kubectl delete deployment. What is the deployment? Spring boot hyphen deployment. If you run this command, your pods also will be deleted. See, no resources are found, no replica sets are found, but still your services exist. But when you don't have a pods, this service is also not required anymore. Now you can delete your service also here. Spring boot hyphen service here in this way. See, spring boot hyphen service is also deleted here. These are the important commands you should be aware when you are attending an interview, guys. Okay, if you are looking any online training with our e-commerce Java project, how to deploy Docker and Kubernetes, reach out to this contact number. You can call directly. We will help you for enrollment process as well. And see here, this is the architecture. If you take one application, imagine if you have one, two, three, four, when you have number of services, communication will be there, environmental variables will be there, how you can handle, how to deploy into cluster, how you can do Docker, everything will be discussed as part of our real-time Java project training. By using Kubernetes, we can monitor and we can deploy ELK stack and everything also here, guys. Okay, if you like our session, please leave your valuable comments, guys, so that I can do more and more videos also, and join our official Telegram group for updates also here. Okay, so that's all for today's session. Thank you, guys.